Okay, let's kick things off. Imagine you're right here with us, yeah. We're on this bus tour, cruising through Harbin, China in the evening. The city lights are just dazzling, honestly, and there's this incredible energy. We're soaking it all in while we get into another deep dive for you, our listener, right here on the DragonCruiser. Tonight, we're tackling something really fascinating. It's a bit of a paradox, actually, sitting right at the heart of China's huge manufacturing power. So our mission is pretty clear. Cut through some of the noise, maybe some misinformation too, and understand why something that sounds so simple, like a ballpoint pen tip, became this national obsession, and why it was such a symbol of an industrial challenge, especially when you think about China's other amazing tech achievements.
It really is quite the puzzle, isn't it? Because, I mean, on one side, you've got China as this recognized global tech superpower. We're talking world leadership in high-speed rail, EVs, aerospace, even advanced AI, huge stuff. But then right alongside that, you have this, well, historically documented struggle to make really good quality ballpoint pen tips at home. And like you said, it's not just some funny story about pens. It really represents these broader, maybe more subtle challenges in like high precision engineering. It shows that even for a giant like China, technological progress isn't always, perfectly even across the board.
That's a great way to put it, because the achievements, they are undeniably staggering. I mean, the high-speed rail network, it's the world's largest. You've got trains like the Beijing-Shanghai line hitting, 350 kilometers an hour? That's incredibly fast. And honestly, just seeing the modern train stations, even here in Harbin, gives you a real sense of that engineering muscle. It's impressive.
Exactly. And if you look at the bigger picture, these aren't just one-offs. They're really key parts of a very deliberate, long-term industrial strategy. Take electric vehicles. China's leading the world now, right? Companies like BYD, NIO, XPeng, making huge waves globally. Their space program, too, very ambitious, very capable. Remember, Change 5 bringing back moon samples in 2020. And AI, huge investments there. Models like DeepSeek supposedly giving Western ones a run for their money. It all ties back to that Made in China 2025 plan. It's this big push to move from being the world's factory to being a leader in high-tech, innovative industries.
It really does paint a picture of a nation right at the cutting edge. And you absolutely feel that vibe here. Riding through Harbin tonight, you see the ambition everywhere, the skyline, the modern buildings, the sheer scale of everything, and how fast they adopt new tech, like mobile payments for, everything. It's genuinely impressive. You feel the pulse of that economic drive. It's a society moving incredibly quickly, always pushing. But that context, that massive tech capability is exactly why the pen thing is so surprising.
Precisely. That sets up the contrast perfectly. Because despite China making, get this, around 38 billion ballpoint pens a year, which is something like 80% of all the pens made globally, historically they had to import the most critical tiny part, the actual tip of the pen.
It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it, right? We're talking about, $17.3 million a year spent importing these tiny things, mostly from places like Japan, Germany, Switzerland. And it wasn't some hidden issue either. It blew up into a national pride thing in 2016 when Premier Li Keqiang himself actually complained about it publicly, said the domestic pens felt rough compared to imported ones. He basically turned a pen tip into a national strategic issue. What was the real impact of him saying that, do you think?
Oh, that was huge. It really put a spotlight on it. His comments weren't just symbolic talk. They highlighted a very real, publicly acknowledged gap in their industrial power, even with all that massive manufacturing scale. It basically put pressure on Chinese industry to fix this specific problem. It signaled that even the tiniest parts mattered for the Made in China 2025 goals of self-reliance and, high-quality stuff. The message was clear. No detail is too small if you want to be a top industrial power.
Okay, so what makes this tiny little metal tip such a massive engineering headache?
Yeah, this is where it gets fascinating. It's the microscopic precision needed. We're talking about a tiny ball, maybe 2.3 millimeters wide, inside the tip, and it needs to fit perfectly with an error margin of only 30 nanometers. Just for perspective, a human hair is about 80,000 nanometers thick, so this is precision on an almost atomic scale. And until 2017, China just didn't have the specialized machines and the deep know-how in metallurgy, the science of metals, to do this consistently well. It's not just mixing metals, it's understanding the steel's microscopic structure, how tiny impurities affect it, making alloys that last. It's very, very specialized.
But there was a breakthrough. I remember reading about this. January 2017, right? Taiyuan Iron and Steel Group TISCO, they announced it cracked it. After 5 years of research, they could make the steel needed for these tips. And the plan was to ramp up production and replace imports within a couple of years. Big news at the time. Seems a real symbolic win for Made in China 2025, showing they could tackle these tough challenges. So, okay, given that breakthrough, How does it stack up against some claims our listener mentioned? Stuff doing the rounds on Douyin that's like China's TikTok. Our listener specifically asked us to check these out.
Right, and this is where things get interesting, looking at how information spreads, especially when national pride is involved. Let's break those claims down one by one against what we know from reliable sources. Okay, claim one. China's inability to produce ballpoint pen tips is just a rumor. Well, analysis shows that's definitively false. Historical sources, like reports from Fortune, BBC News back then, they all confirm it. China was unable to consistently make high-quality tips domestically before TISCO's 2017 announcement. They relied heavily on imports. It was a well-known issue. Claim two. TISCO's production caused oversupply, bankrupting European and Japanese pen tip factories. This one's also false. We found absolutely zero evidence of European or Japanese factories going under because of TISCO. Think about it, that import market was around $17 million a year. That's pretty small in the grand scheme of global manufacturing. It's just not likely to bankrupt major players in Europe or Japan. Plus, and this is really key, China's imports of pen tips actually went up after 2017, from about $12 million then to nearly $28 million by 2023. So clearly no overproduction wiping out foreign suppliers. In fact, reports as recent as 2021 suggested China still imported about 80% of its high-quality tips. And the last one, claim three. China got sued at the WTO over this pen tip production. Again, false. There are no records, no news reports, nothing about a WTO lawsuit related to ballpoint pen tips. WTO cases usually involve much bigger trade disputes, huge market impacts. This pen tip market is just too small for that kind of international trade fight.
Okay, so it sounds like those Douyin claims are pretty much unfounded, or at least seriously exaggerated. Probably, like you said, misinformation or maybe some nationalistic storytelling going on. Shows how sensitive the topic is. You know, looking out the window here at the bustling streets in Harbin, everyone's on their phones, scrolling. You can almost feel how fast information, true or not, can just ripple through a place like this, so connected and dynamic. And you sense that collective pride, which helps you understand why even a tiny pen tip could become, well, such a big deal here.
Absolutely. And seeing the energy on the street, the people, it just reinforces that there's often a lot more nuance to the story than what might pop up on social media. It definitely highlights why it's so important to think critically about the information we see, especially online.
Which brings us neatly to the sort of current situation with these pen tips. Because despite that big TISCO announcement back in 2017, more recent reports, even into 2024, seem to suggest that progress hasn't been quite as rapid or complete as maybe hoped back then.
Yeah, and that raises a really important question. Why the continuing challenge? Why does China still seem heavily reliant on imported tips? That 80% dependency figure in 2021 is striking, and the import costs going up to nearly $28 million by 2023 is even more telling. It probably points to those broader difficulties in really high-end, specialized precision engineering. China's incredible at scaling up production at volume, but mastering these very niche, top-quality applications, that seems to be a persistent hurdle.
So what makes those niche applications so much tougher? Is it about the type of research or investment or maybe just time?
It's likely a mix of things. Some experts point to maybe a historical focus on getting production up and running quickly, sometimes at the expense of that deep fundamental materials science work that can take decades to pay off. It's also about building up what they call tacit knowledge, that hands-on expertise that's hard to just write down in a manual or transfer quickly. You need incredibly strict quality control, mastery over really advanced, tricky materials, and just generations of built-up know-how in some cases. And it's not just pens. You see similar patterns in things like ultra-high precision ball bearings or the most advanced semiconductor manufacturing equipment, or even, say, complex mechanical watch movements. These areas often rely on a whole ecosystem of specialized suppliers and deep expertise.
Wow, that's a really powerful reminder that even for a huge economic and tech powerhouse, progress isn't always, a straight lineup. It's complex. And it's fascinating being here in Harbin, seeing all this super advanced tech everywhere, QR codes for everything, the super fast delivery scooters whizzing by, and then knowing about these hidden challenges, these tiny components that represent these really intricate, detailed hurdles within this massive, fast-moving economy, this bus ride. Just looking out the window, it kind of underlines that mix huge scale innovation alongside these very specific, tough little problem. Really makes you appreciate the whole picture. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What we've really dug into tonight is this fascinating contrast, right? China, the tech superpower, facing this real ongoing challenge with something as basic as a ballpoint pen tip. And importantly, we found that those specific Douyin claims our listener flagged, they seem to be false, more likely driven by national narratives than actual facts. Really highlights the need for media literacy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The pen tip story, though small in scale, it really did become this symbolic thing for China's bigger manufacturing goals. It illustrates perfectly that technological progress isn't monolithic, even for the biggest players. And yes, absolutely crucial to think critically in today's world where narratives can spread so fast and sometimes obscure the real complexities of how things actually work. It's a good reminder that true mastery often isn't just about the big headline breakthroughs, but about perfecting those tiny microscopic details.
So what does come next in China's quest for self-sufficiency in every single component, no matter how small? This deep dive definitely reminds us that real innovation is often hidden in mastering those tiny details, the little things that make everything else work. Makes you wonder, what small, maybe overlooked component in your own world, your own work, might actually be holding back bigger progress? Something to think about. Well, we really hope this deep dive gave you some aha moments, maybe a clearer view of this pretty unique story, and a little taste of what it feels like traveling through China right now. If you enjoyed this journey with us, exploring the facts and cruising through Harbin, definitely give this deep dive a like. And please, leave us a comment. Let us know your thoughts, your questions. We love hearing from you. And of course, hit that subscribe button for the Dragon Cruiser so you don't miss our next insights. Until next time, keep digging deeper.